Hey there, I'm Daniel. Welcome to Bandit's Keep. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the idea of telling versus inspiring. And what I'm talking about specifically is, I guess I'm speaking to people who create games in some level, or create modules, or create things that other people are going to read, or maybe just the process of it. We'll see where this goes. Initially, I had a note in my notes here. It literally says, more options gives you less options. And what I was thinking was how let me move this keyboard so I can get comfortable. This could be a while. When I first started playing, so I had gone away from playing D&D for a while. I played, maybe into high school, but it faded more and more as it went. But I had started when I was really young, about 9 years old, so I played for a while, all through first edition, essentially. And then I stopped playing. And I never really thought too much about it. At one point in college, I went out looking for D&D books because I was just remembering it, and I bought a couple second edition things, but I never really played. But anyways, I barely read them. So time went by. I totally forgot about it. Never really, like many people probably that are in my age group, that are back into it now. When I discovered it, I discovered 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, and I thought, well, this is really great, And honestly, without looking back and comparing all the notes or whatever, I thought it was pretty much very similar. I see now the more I play how different it is, but it felt the same. It was basically the same kind of thing. And one thing I really noticed and I really liked about it was that they had this section. I probably should have busted up my book to show it, but they had this section where it's like you pick a fault or a goal. You pick these different background elements to create this to inspire you, in theory, I guess, to create a great character. Maybe your character is greedy, or they have a secret, and you roll on this table, or you pick, I guess, depending on what you're doing. And then you've got your classes. Like if you're a fighter, you're not just a fighter. You've got different. You can be a fighter, magic. I don't know what it's called. Fighter man. Somebody's Eldritch Knight. It's been a while since I've read Fabi. Or you could be whatever. And I thought, well, this is really interesting. Lots of options, right? It's really good for creativity. But then I noticed that, as I progressed, and especially as part of a lot of forums and stuff, people would be talking, and you'd get a lot of this comment where it was like, oh man, Wizards of the Coast need to come up with more archetypes for the fighter. Oh, Wizards of the Coast need to come up with more backgrounds that I can start with. I've used all these. Oh, they need to come up with more flaws and more goals. And what I realized was, at least, what I was seemed to me was that the fact that all these things were there, it was actually kind of a hindrance. Okay, sure, if you don't have any idea, this is great, right? You jump right into it. But if you become reliant on the company creating the game or anything like that to tell you where your character should come from, to inspire your character, then you're going to be very, very limited, And I realized that it just wasn't. Over time, I started playing more OSR games, went back to playing BX, and I realized just the idea of me reading a short story and about a warrior, and then making my character based on them without any mechanical things necessarily. But that kind of stuff inspired me, and there's an endless level of inspiration there because there's all kinds of stories, going throughout, history, and you could find tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of characters, way more than they could ever put in this book. And I'm not saying you can't do that in something like 5th edition, and you should do that, I would say, if you make a character in 5th edition, but that there's a lot of people who are learning to play this way, where things are given to them, and they're given them what appears to be a limited amount of choices, even though that's not exactly what it is, and I get that, but it appears that way. And it's almost like if you were going to play a video game, an RPG video game, and you could pick, the things from it. And that's how many people see those charts, and it makes them want more and more and more. And I'm not going to talk about selling and books and blah, blah. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. I'm talking about the idea of people feeling constrained. Because even though there's a ton of information, the more information you give them, the more they need, because they feel like they need that in order to create their character. Where if I just said, envision a warrior in your head, and made you come up with all of it, it's a little bit tougher, maybe for a lot of people on the spot, but there's no limit to what you could do. In fact, I was just reading a post on a forum, I think it was a BX forum, where somebody was running a game for the first time with kids. And they said this one kid showed up, children, basically like 9, 10 years old. He showed up with like a drawing of exactly what he wanted his character to be like. He knew he was playing this game. He'd never played D&D before, but he had an idea about he was going to play this warrior, and he just created something from his brain, what he wanted to do. And of course, the GM, the DM, made it work, because why wouldn't you do that, right? And that's really it, right? I think that really, really helps. So that was the beginning of what I was thinking about here. But then I was, I'm doing another project, which I don't want to talk about so much here, but I have a podcast as well on Anchor, which, if you're into podcasts, it's called the same thing. Where I'm talking about taking original Dungeons and Dragons and using the chainmail rules for combat, which is super interesting. And a lot of people were working on that, like, God, almost 10 years ago, it looks like, from the stuff I can find that inspired me. And I'm kind of revamping and re-editing it to suit my taste. But I was working with Nikki, who's helping me, as one of my players, and we were looking at the monsters. And I thought, this is amazing, right? So this is I'm going to show you. I'm going to go to the screen. This is from the original Dungeons and Dragons book 2, which is Monsters and Treasure. So we see here they've got first of all, if you compare it to, and again, you could see this as a bad thing or a good thing, depending on how you're looking at it. You could see that if you look at Sea Monster, which was the one I was really laughing about, as a general rule, these creatures are more for show than anything else. However, they could guard treasure. Typical sea monster mythology is equal to the size of a purple worm. They work upwards from there to double or treble that size. Okay, that's all fine. The best guide is a book on prehistoric life forms, from which the referee can pick a number of suitable forms for the sea monster. Typically, hits from sea monster will inflict 3 or 4 dice of damage. So what they're giving you here is a general overview of what you could do with a sea monster. They're not giving you 10 different sea monsters to choose from, which is what you end up now with a lot of. And AD&D did this as well. I'm not saying this is the 5th edition problem. I'm listening to a podcast, Monster Man. If you don't listen to that, it's amazing. I've been listening to it forever. He goes through these things, and you'll see, like, they just, this is basically this monster but tougher. This is this monster but weaker. It's like they just keep giving versions upon versions of the monsters, because I think they're thinking people just can't come up with their own monster, Whereas this, right, the original game, it's like, here's a Minotaur. The Minotaur is classically a bull-headed man, and all of us who have debated rules are well acquainted with such. It's a joke. Like, there's literally a joke in the description of the Minotaur. There's a tiny little paragraph describing what a Minotaur is, and a third of it is a joke. Right? Assume they're above average human size and they're man-eaters. They never check morale. They always attack. They will pursue as long as prey is sight. That's all it says about them. Now, you might be saying, where's the stats? If you're not familiar with OD&D, all the monsters in the original book are basically in the front here. And it gives you their stats. And actually, if you look, if I can find it, if you look at Sea Monster, right here, all variable and referee's discretion, right? So the game, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, because I always feel like sometimes it sounds like I'm saying this is a bad thing when I mention the contrast. The game has changed a lot, right? And I wonder if it's necessarily for the best in some cases. I do think, like I said, I loved the fact that that 5e had those things. I rolled on those charts and I was like, oh yeah, I have this. And I thought it was really cool. But of course, then I personally, because I'd played other editions and didn't have the luxury of those charts, I was easy enough for me to be like, okay, but I also want to create a character that does this and add my own things, right? And again, it says you can do that in 5th edition, but the implication of them giving you a list is that that's what you should do. And I think that's the danger, right? That's the danger that we'll face of people thinking that the game is more prescribed than really it should be, in my opinion. I feel like a role-playing game, especially D&D, it is at its strongest when we as players and GMs can kind of just use our imagination and use the rules as famous quotes all the time. The rules are basically guidelines. They give you an idea of how things should work. They're not fixed in stone. If you want your orcs to be more powerful, or your kobolds to be less powerful, or you want your minotaurs to be vegetarians, you could do that, right? There's nothing that says you can't do it, and you can make that work. And that is kind of the power of the game, in my mind. The idea that it's a set of guidelines that allows you to tell a story in a very specific way with rules to kind of make sure everything's kind of, at least on some level consistent, because that really is the key, right? We want to be consistent, and you want to have a consistency to the things you're doing, even though you want to be loose with it. If you one time say that, whatever, all Minotaurs are vegetarians, then they should be vegetarians. I mean, it's just the way it is, not to say that, you could have them. First of all, there should just be one. And I get this. This is a D&D problem. This is not a new edition problem. But I like, in my campaigns, the way I like to do it is I don't have tribes of Minotaurs. There is the Minotaur, right? And there is Medusa, generally. I don't usually... how often are you going to use a Medusa anyways? So it's like, why not make it a very specific monster? So that's just my thought. Anyways, that's a whole different thing. Maybe that's a different video, guys. Anyways, that's what I was thinking. Sometimes it's better to inspire than it is to tell. Loose sentences that bring forward images in your mind, right? Not piles and piles and piles of text describing every little aspect of a town or city. Just the little bits of it that will get you to imagine yourself what's there. And I think those are the games, those are the products that I like to look at, the things that I like to read. They're what I like to do with my players. I like to keep things relatively vague and kind of let them imagine what it's like, and when they make statements, roll with it if it seems okay. The caveat here is that if you're doing like a dungeon crawl, you do want to be more precise about where exactly things are, because you don't want somebody thinking a room looks different or whatever. So when you get to combat, you got to be a little more precise. But all the other stuff, it can be super loose. Go read a book, pick up some National Geographics, see what animals do, see what things do, and make that part of your game. Don't feel like you have to be prescribed to exactly what the game creator says the monster should be like, or the creature should be like, or the people should be like. Nothing is set in stone. You can make your world anything you want it to be, and that's what makes things great. I think the tighter we get with the rules, the tighter we get with descriptions and settings, the harder it is to actually have a choice. And that starts to really create a very specific game that isn't the game that I like to play. So, but what kind of game do you guys like to play? Would you rather have a town where it's all listed out so that everything's really perfect, and that, okay, in the Forgotten Realms or wherever, Greyhawk or wherever you're playing, this is the way this country is, and this is where this is there, and this is how things are? Or do you like a more loose kind of world, if you will? I was about to cut there because I was asking you a question, but I have one more thing I'm going to say. Hopefully this isn't too much of a spoiler. One of my favorite modules ever, and maybe I'll just talk about it. I guess interested in hearing me talk about modules? A lot of people do this, so I don't know that you want me to do that, but White Plume Mountain is, and actually if you watch any of my live plays, you probably get a feeling why I would like White Plume Mountain, but there's a map that comes with it. There's like a map that you give to the players, and it has like the surrounds of White Plume Mountain, and on that map is of course the mountain. And I think there's a little bit of information in the module about the town that's listed on there, maybe just a tiny bit, but there's a town listed on there. And then there's a couple things. There's like, I forget her name now, but there's something, the hag in the swamp. And then there's like, here is the dragon of blah, blah. There is nothing in the module about those things. But when I ran my 5th edition campaign, and I actually used White Plume Mountain, I actually created all those characters that were there. So that little bit of information about somebody just writing on a map, here lies dragons, right? That inspired what became a big chunk, actually, of the campaign, because it inspired me. I saw those cool names. So I think leaving things vague works for me. Like I said, let me know what you think. Do you like when things are more vague? Do you like when things are more precise? What is it? How do you like, I guess, product to be delivered to you? How do you like GMs to deliver stuff to you? Do you like to be able to just kind of go with the flow with loose options, or do you like very precise skills and that kind of stuff? Let me know in the comments below. In any case, I'll see you next time.